guys, Sean C. Phillips here, and welcome to my June 29th DVD update where I talk about all the DVDs and Blu-rays I've gotten over the past probably 2 weeks or so. I also wanted to say in the next update, it's probably going to be a little bit early because of Comic-Con. I'm also going to do a video about Comic-Con because there's a signing that I'm going to be doing for The Haunting of Whaley House, so I'm going to give more details and things like that. They're also going to be promoting Girls Gone Dead there, so I'll make sure to promote, talk about all that in a future video before Comic-Con. But anyway, though, I'm in a different setting. I'm up in my room because it's very hot in the garage, so I'm trying something different. I kind of rearranged the room, so I now have a different thing. And the background, I may be moving these a little closer and do a couple movements, but, this is a different spot. Now, the first one I got from Sony is The Artist. Now, this one, as you know, won the Academy Award for Best Picture, and I think he won, I'm pretty sure he won for Best Actor. Now, I really like this one a lot more than I thought I was. Basically, the movie is... Now, when it starts off, you might think it's going to be like one kind of thing, like a lot of dancing and all that stuff, the whole movie. The basic thing is, it's about a big, silent film star. He's basically, as big as someone who would be like a Brad Pitt now or something like that during, I think it's the late 20s. And he's very popular, and this, he ends up meeting this fan at a screening of his, one of his newest films. She ends up getting photographed with him and loves the attention from it. So then she ends up going to a casting for basically extras and ends up getting in a film with him, and they have this dance scene. And then she basically, what ends up happening is later in the film, this is what is that it's basically right around the time when it's going to become talkies, films with dialogue. And even when you watch a documentary on Three Stooges, they were talking about how they didn't want to have to do dialogue at first, things like that, because they thought it was going to be, I think I was something like that I remember seeing. But basically, though, he ends up getting let go from the company, and it's basically his life and what happens. And the whole movie is done in a silent film. There are like 1 or 2 sequences with some dialogue, and it's basically, there's really only maybe 50 frames of dialogue, just basically where it's the blank screen with text. But I really liked this story. I really thought, I really got into it, and by the end of it, you really pretty much, at least I did, forgot that there really wasn't any dialogue. I also will say I really loved what they did with the end. And I'm not going to say what happens in it, but this really was a good movie, and I really could see, though, why it got nominated for Best Picture. I really would recommend this one. The next one I got is 21... Oh yeah, I also wanted to say, too, there's a really cool feature on this talking about the, Hollywood and some of the places that they filmed that are like real places still around that were there during the 20s. And this is a very cool feature, so definitely check that one out on there. The next one is from Sony as well, is 21 Jump Street, which is the kind of like not really a remake, but it's the movie, and it's in the same universe. See, I never watched the 21 Jump Street show. I thought it really wasn't, as a kid, I was born 85, so it really wasn't something that I watched as a kid. I don't even know if I saw any reruns of it. Because I don't really recall it being a show that they really reran too much. Not that I can remember. I don't know if I really saw any episodes of it, but this stars Jonah Hill and Channing Tatum. And, a lot of people don't love Channing Tatum. He's grown on me a lot lately with some of the movies that he's done. I don't know about that stripper movie that he's in that's coming out, I think, tomorrow. Looks okay. But this basically stars skinny Jonah Hill because he lost weight for this movie. I think he's getting heavy again, though. But, I like Jonah Hill. To me, I wasn't sure how he was going to be skinny. I think he's fine either way. As a fat person, I think he should just be whatever size he wants, whatever makes him happy. But the movie basically is these 2 cops, they're pretty new cops, and they're out on there on a mission, doing sort of security duty at a park, and they end up noticing a drug deal going on, and they end up chasing the guy and arresting him, but they forget to read him the Miranda rights. So because of that, it's a big screw up, and they end up getting put onto, they go to where Ice Cube is, which is an undercover operation, and they get to do undercover at this school, because they look younger. So they end up doing undercover work at this high school, trying to figure out this synthetic drug that's going on, and trying to get to the bottom of who is, distributing it to the school and trying to stop it. But all in all, though, I thought this was a really funny movie. Really did like this one. Definitely worth watching. The next one I got This was only, I think, $12.99 when it first came out. I think it's now up to 20-something. And it's the Sister Act collection with Sister Act 1 and 2. I've never really loved Sister Act 2. The first one was a really good movie, though. The first one was Whoopi Goldberg's character, and she's like a lounge singer in Vegas, and she ends up, I think, walking in on her boyfriend who's like, I think it was a boyfriend or a boyfriend's friends just killed somebody, and they end up going after her. And she ends up having to go on and, basically be put in a safe house at a convent because they don't really know where to put her. So it's basically her trying to hide out as a nun. And the only person that knows that she's a nun is, the head nun. I guess the Mother Superior, played by the woman who was in, The Secret Garden and Titanic and lots of movies. But she ends up, having to go and hide out with these nuns. And, she goes into all these kind of weird situations and things like that, and she has a really hard time dealing with their ways and things like that. The next one I got from Paramount, and I had never seen this one before. I will say, though, be careful peeling the sticker off. I learned the hard way. But it's Jane Fonda in Barbarella, Queen of the Galaxy. And I think Queen of the Galaxy was an added title because there's a lot of talk about like the uncut version. As far as I can tell, this is like the full uncut version of the film, so there's like all the nudity and things like that. Because I think some versions years ago or something I was reading, cut some stuff. Because I was actually surprised with how much stuff you see in a PG movie and just some of the content and things like that. But basically the movie is Jane Fonda I will say the opening is really cool with this like Barbarella song and the way she's like flying around and stuff. And I will say, like, for the time, the effects in this were so cool. And like, this movie has a total, when you think of like 60s sci-fi, those cheesy, fun, the kind of effects that you don't see anymore. Like the last time I saw them like, do effects like this kind of in a fun way was the Gentleman Broncos movie. They did those kind of Barbarella, like space effects. I love that kind of stuff. If you like Lost in Space and that kind of stuff, and like H.R. Puffin stuff, and those kind of real crazy sets, like the spaceship that she's in is like all shag carpet on the walls and things like that. Like, I loved it. I really like this a lot. But basically, she ends up getting a call from like the president of Earth that she needs to go to this planet to find Duran Duran. Not Duran Duran the band. Like, I wonder if Duran Duran got their name from this. I'm guessing they probably did. But it's like this scientist that she has to find, to stop something happening to the galaxy. So she ends up going to this planet. And the planet basically has, good and then evil. And she has to get to the evil area. And the good area, she meets all these different people and basically sleeping with all these people. And she ends up meeting an angel in this kind of labyrinth thing. And like I said, some of the sets in this were amazing. Like crazy, like, miniatures mixed with like rear screen projections and all this kind of stuff. Like, even if, there was just so many amazing, crazy effects in this thing. This one, like, especially, like I said, the opening and, when she gets to the labyrinth and then the dream chamber in this. I don't know, this was really cool movie. Definitely check this one out. I really like this one a lot. And the one guy in it looks like, oh yeah, kind of too, a lot of movies like, in the 90s and some of the other space movies took stuff from this. Like if you saw Mom and Dad Save the Planet or Universe, they kind of took some things from this. If you notice, they even made John Lovitz kind of looked, I don't know if it was just a coincidence, but John Lovitz kind of looked like the one character in this too. But like I said, this is one that I really liked. The next one I got from Fox is Mirror Mirror, and this has a cool cover to it. Like, it was sort of just stuck on, but I kind of put it in there, and it sort of changes between. But this is the, Snow White story, and it's basically, the one girl is actually, and I didn't know this until later, Lily Collins. It's Phil Collins' daughter, and I didn't know that till after I watched this, but she basically plays Snow White. And, it's basically the same kind of story with her getting kicked out of the castle because of the evil queen, that ends up, taking over. And so she ends up out there. The best stuff in this, though, was the stuff with the dwarfs. When she's out there with them, and they did some kind of cool stuff with them. Like, these dwarfs had like these things they wore, so they were big size and kind of were scaring everybody out in the woods and things like that. And you'll notice a lot of the dwarfs are like some really good character actors who have been in a lot of movies. And I thought they were the best, and Nathan Lane was the best in this. This wasn't an absolutely amazing movie or anything like that, but I thought this was a fun story. story. Like, I personally rather watch this one than the kind of more serious, the Snow White and the Henchman one. But this is a really fun family movie, you know, and definitely would check this one out. The next one I got is really cool. It's a FX show that I had never seen when it's on. And if you like Drop Dead Fred, you definitely like this. It has like a very Drop Dead Fred vibe to it. And I think it's an Australian show. So I don't know if it's I know it's the same character playing Wilford. I definitely want to get the Australian one, you know, at least the first season, to compare the differences with the two. But it's based on Elijah Wood. And, you know, he's basically going to kill himself. And he has, like, these pills. And, you know, this opens with him taking down the pills. And they're really doing no effect on him. But then he ends up seeing the neighbor's dog. The neighbor comes over with the dog, you know, when he's on all this stuff. And was like, would you mind watching my dog while she was doing something. So he ends up watching the dog. And the dog is basically, the way he sees it, is this, you know, character in, like, a dog suit. And, you know, everybody else sees him as a dog, so you never really know what exactly is going on and how he's seeing him like this. And there's stuff in here when he's, you know, the one character from Ethan Suplee, you know, who's really skinny now, is in it, is like the crazy neighbor who they stole his pot plants in one episode. And, you know, he ends up coming over and lying like he didn't do it, and then they end up becoming friends. He's doing all this crazy stuff with Ethan Supplee's character. There's all these different things. Like, Wilford is like, you know, a friend to him, but yet at the same time he's like causing all these problems to him. And like I said, though, if you like the kind of humor of Drop Dead Fred and someone talking to something and kind of like crazy kind of stuff, this is definitely one for you. I like this one a lot. And I think the second season is like just starting up now. The next one I got, now don't ask me how I got this cover version, because I've not seen any other ones have this version. It's We Need to Talk About Kevin. It's in this like really cool case, and like all the other things for it I've seen are just a regular DVD case, Blu-ray case, and it's not like this. So I don't know how it's like this. Basically, it also opens up and has like this, and then the discs and like the drawings that Kevin did, you know, and I don't know, you know, what version this exactly is, because the versions that I've seen everywhere online and in the store is just a single Blu-ray with like 2 discs. Some of them are single and some of them come with a DVD and a Blu-ray. But We Need to Talk About Kevin, though, is basically Tilda Swinton's character, and, you know, it's basically, you know, you don't really know what's going on. It keeps flashing back and forth a few times in her life, and it, you know, it goes from points when she's living with, you know, this family to points when she's back in her house. And you basically know that Kevin, you know, it's showing her with her life in the beginning and how she has this kid and all these things that are happening. Like, it's really hard to review without ruining anything, but this is a really cool, creepy, weird film. And you kind of get an idea when you watch the trailer, like something really bad happened that the kid did. But that's really all I can say. The next one is some titles from Redemption Films from Kino, and I really like their stuff. The first one is called Burke and Her, and they actually, this is a story that they redid a couple times, but I think the Doctor and the Devils was the one they made in like 1989, I think. And that was another pretty good one. This one, though, is basically, the one actress in this was from The Iron Rose, and I was like thinking, is that the same person? Because this was like, I think a British film, and The Iron Rose was a French film. But I think she spoke English is what it was. And I think even on the dubbed version, I think she dubbed her own track, I think, in Iron Rose. But basically this is the story about these 2 guys that basically get the idea, and this is like in the 1800s, of robbing, you know, basically, now they don't rob graves, they end up, like one guy dies off, and then they end up taking his body, because they have, kind of work in a place where they have a bunch of people staying with them, like tenants and stuff, in this sort of crappy place. And they end up taking his body to this doctor, who ends up giving him, I think, like equivalent of like $5 or something like that. So they end up basically trying to, you know, killing off people to get bodies to sell to this guy. And it's funny, like, it has this theme song to it that is so 70s, like, it in no way seems like something you'd hear in the 1800s. It's like Burke and Her, and it's like real weird song, like bopping, dropping like 70s tune with this thing. It's like really weird. I don't know, I really enjoyed this one. This is a really pretty cool one. Like some of the other reviews that I've seen talk about how like the stuff in like the whorehouse go on and on. Yeah, I will admit, like I noticed a lot of movies during this time when they, you know, have stuff, they always, like in the 1800s, they always have stuff in like a brothel. And they always have the brothel stuff kind of go on. And I guess they do that just to kind of put nude scenes in these kind of movies, I guess. Because I can't even tell you how many movies during this time period always take place in like a brothel for like a lot of scenes. The next one I got, this one was just okay, is the Blood Beast of Terror with Peter Cushing. I think that's how you say his name. I always thought it was Crushing for some reason, but it's Cushing. And it's basically this, you know, he's basically investigating this kind of winged creature that's killing everybody around in, I think it's in London or something like that. You know, this one was okay. I don't have a whole ton to say about it. Like, you know, there's like, you know, there's something's going on, and, you know, the winged creature could be something, or, you know, him trying to figure out what it is, and, you know, if it's someone or something, things like that. This was okay, though. The next one I got from MPI and IFC, and it's called The Decoy Bride, and it's got Alice Eve, who's been in everything lately, and the lead in it, though, is David Tennant, who was recently just in the Fright Night remake. And it's basically, you know, David Tennant and Alice Eve's character. Alice Eve plays this sort of Hollywood type, kind of like a Jennifer Aniston, someone like that, who is trying to plan her wedding. And every time she tries to go to the wedding to actually, you know, get married, there's all these paparazzis, and she's, you know, basically been around the paparazzi her whole life, wants to get married without them taking her picture there, really wants to make it a private event. So it's basically them trying to figure out where to go, and they end up going to, because David Tennant's character, the character she's marrying in the movie, was a writer and wrote a story about this town in Scotland. And they figure, okay, we're going to go there. But basically, the wedding planners come to find out that this book that he wrote, he never went there. And, you know, all the things that he said were there, like this great castle and these great places and all these things like that, none of them were there. He basically just, you know, lied about everything and basically just Google mapped everything to write his book. But when he's there, he ends up, you know, because Alice Eve's character sees a paparazzi and basically runs off and hides, and they can't find her, and you know, they don't know what to do because they're here again. The paparazzis are getting wind of the whole thing, so they end up getting this decoy bride to come in and basically fake the wedding. So they end up getting a picture with the fake person, and then after everyone thinks they have the picture, because, you know, they're not bright or something like that, because they're going to make her, basically fix her up to look like Alice Eve's character, then they think, okay, then we're going to get out of here, then have the real wedding. So that's basically the main thing. But basically David Tennant's character ends up liking this girl, and all these things happen from there. And the next title I got from Echo Bridge is The Faculty. This is a really good one. I actually remember watching this one in theaters. This is basically about, there's something going on at the school, and Elijah Wood plays the main character in the movie. It's about a group of these kids, and there is, you know, trying to figure out what's going on and trying to basically save the school, because the teachers end up being taken over by these mind-controlling, like, alien things in their head, and that's not ruining anything. It says on the back. I know I'm always trying to be careful not to, you know, give anything away. This is directed by Robert Rodriguez. This was kind of a little bit of a different kind of movie for him, because he hadn't really done like a sci-fi, like teen kind of horror thing like this. It's from the writer, though, Kevin Williamson, who did Scream, so it has that kind of vibe to it. This really was a pretty cool one, though. I really liked it, and them trying to figure out how to, you know, tell who isn't an alien and things like that. But it's basically like these parasite things. A lot of cool cameos in this. Even Harry Knowles, you know, the internet reviewer, has a cameo in this. Definitely will check this one out. The next one I got from Echo Bridge is Imposter. Now, take into account with this is the PG-13 cut, not the R-rated cut. So, like, it's the one that played in theaters, not the ones that have a couple, like, things changed for the uncut one. It's still good, though. But this is basically, you know, with Gary Sinise, and he's, like, works, I think he's, like, developing this weapon. And he goes into work, and they basically, a group of these people grab him, and he's, like, saying, you know, who are you, and, like, all this stuff. And they basically are accusing him of being a clone. So it's basically like something came from this other planet that was against the Earth, and cloned Gary Sinise's character, killed him, took his body, and is planning on blowing up this, I think it's like the Chancellor, a certain character, And, you know, he keeps on saying, no, it's me, what are you talking about? And they're totally convinced that he is. So they basically are, in the opening of movies, they're going to kill him. He ends up escaping. And it's basically, the movie is him trying to hide out and get to the hospital to perform this test on himself to prove that he is who he is. Because this test can read DNA, basically, because when it clones you, it can clone everything except the heart, which would be the explosive. So he wants to go to, you know, get there to prove that he has a human heart, that he really is himself. This is a really cool one, though. It's from the writer, though, of the Blade Runner and Total Recall film. So it has that kind of vibe to it. The next one is another one I remember really liking. I think this one, like, I remember when this first came out, people really were talking about this one. And it's called Dirty Pretty Things. It's a character that just gets pretty much a new employee to this hotel. And he starts noticing that there's something weird going on with this hotel. He goes into one of the rooms at night, and he ends up finding a heart in the toilet, clogging up the toilet. And he starts noticing that there's some very strange things going on. And it's him trying to figure out what's going on, yet at the same time trying to kind of keep quiet. Because, you know, something had happened in his past, and they hint at this a lot of times, that kind of makes him kind of afraid of really speaking up about things. This really was a really pretty cool one, though. And the next one I got from Magnolia is called The Hunter, starring William Dafoe and Sam Neill. And it's basically, William Dafoe is this, he basically hunts certain animals, and he's sent to try and find, because there was a spotting on this very small island of a Tasmanian devil. And they have these real cool clips from like the last time it was seen. I think it was like in the 1930s or 20s, something like that. And he's basically on this island to try and find this thing. When he's there, he ends up staying at this house with this woman who's basically there with just her kids. And the kids are basically going, our father's out, and they don't know where he is. And he went out doing something out in the same kind of area that William Dafoe's character is, looking for the Tasmanian devil. And, you know, he basically ends up forming this bond with the woman who's basically on drugs and really, you know, sleeping all day and helping out these kids. So it's all these different aspects of this at the same time of him out there trying to find this thing. I will say this really is a total downer film, though. You know, it was absolutely amazing. I really love this movie a lot, but it is very depressing. You know, and the end is pretty sad. But, you know, I will say this was a really good one. Some really amazing photography out in this where they film this. And, you know, I don't want to say what if he does or doesn't find it, but this, I really like this. I feel like William Dafoe, I feel like he hasn't really ever done a bad movie. I really don't think he has. The next one is a Bobcat Goldthwait film that I've been really wanting to see, called God Bless America. Now, you know, they even interviewed him saying, was this you kind of trying to make a point about, you know, the culture and society? And basically he was saying his basic reason behind the film is he's just saying how it's too bad that people just aren't nice to each other anymore, and there's not a lot of kindness, you know, in America and in the world anymore. And, you know, I kind of get where he was coming from with some people just aren't like they used to be and things like that. But the basic idea is, it's about this guy who just found out that he has a terminal brain tumor, and he's going to die in like a matter of months to weeks. And he ends up basically getting fed up with everybody. And he starts basically killing people that are pissing him off. So he ends up killing, there's this girl that he saw on TV, it was some kind of Sweet 16 show, talking about how she hated that she didn't get the right car. He goes off and kills her. At the same time, this one girl, probably around the same age as the girl, notices it and like loves it, what he's doing. She's like, oh, I can't believe you killed her off, I hated her. And she ends up coming along with him. And they end up going and killing off all these different people. And I don't know, I thought it was pretty good. And basically, though, it is him making a point, though, about reality shows and about how people can become, you know, mockery on things like American Idol, how, like, the people who have, you know, disabilities or really aren't playing with a full deck at points, and, you know, how they kind of, like William Hung and people like that, how they kind of get made fun of. And it's kind of a joke, and, you know, it was very interesting points and things like that. I thought, though, it really was a pretty well-done movie. You know, it wasn't as good as World's Greatest Dad, which I think was his absolute greatest film. Bobcat Goldthwait isn't in the movie, though I do wish he did, like, a little cameo. I really like him as an actor, too, and I like that crazy voice that he used to do. This really is one, though, to totally check out. The next one I got, which is from E1, and this, I heard a lot about this one, like especially on like the on demand and things like that, promoting this. It's called Jesus Henry Christ, and it's basically about this kid, you know, who he basically can remember anything that he sees. So basically, even when he was a little baby, he remembers when he was like a matter of days old. He can remember that day. He can remember If he looks at a book, he can look through the whole book and commit the entire book to memory. And he ends up, basically, his grandfather is talking to him and tells him about his father and about, him trying to figure out his father, and tells him that he came from a sperm donor, that, his father was a sperm donor. It's him trying to track down the father. He ends up finding the sister, but not the father. So he's trying to figure out, if the, all these different things going on. And the kid, though, is kind of always causing problems where he goes. Like, he's in a Catholic school, and he ends up putting bulletins all around the school saying there is no God and all this stuff. And, he causes all kinds of problems everywhere he goes because he's very intelligent, too, and he kind of thinks he knows everything. So he ends up running into all kinds of little problems along the way. But this really was a really good movie. This is definitely one that I really liked a lot. So definitely check this one out. The next ones are from A&E, and I think these come out, July, like mid-July. And Storage Wars Volume 3. I love Storage Wars. I know now there's all this stuff going on with the new season, like with Dave Hester. And, I thought Dave Hester was back, and now there's just like this weird, like Jimmy Jones or something. I'm thinking of this guy, like, I don't know who he is or where he came from. I don't know if anyone's like watching the new season. Like I said, Dave Hester was there, and like he was in all the ads and like the $1 million ad they produced. So I don't know if maybe he wasn't there at first and this other guy was there and they just sort of want to get rid of these episodes. But, on with the actual show, it's basically about these group of, I think it's 4 different auction who go to, like, storage auctions and end up buying the things and, showing what they have. And a lot of people wouldn't think if they just heard the concept, because sometimes when I tell people about it, they don't think it's as interesting as when you actually watch it. I really like this. The best character in it, though, is Barry. Like, I really hope he doesn't ever leave. He's always kind of this cool old guy, and he's always has all these cars. And if you saw the Storage Wars Texas, there's a character, Mo, who's kind of the Barry clone. But the Mo character kind of disappears. I don't know what happened with him. But he's like a foot doctor. I don't know. I love this show. This is such a good show. And them doing, finding all these kind of crazy things and the kind of stuff that they can find there, which, sometimes they end up finding, no value at all in these things. Sometimes they find like $30,000. And there's a lot of these kind of shows on, but I think this is definitely the best one. The new A&E show, too, is really good, called Barter Kings, which I like a lot, too. But definitely pick this one up. And also has some bonus scenes. So it has like a couple of different interviews, and some of them with the 2 characters together, the Brandy and I forget her husband's name, but they're together doing an interview. You never see them really together. I guess it was like interviews without the green screen stuff put in, but definitely pick this one up. The next one is another one I really like from the History Channel, and it's IRT's Deadliest Road Season 2, and this is Season 2, and this is all in the Andes. The first season was in India, and it's about these 3... I think it was 3 or 4 truckers that go to, basically these insane roads and try and drive these, basically have all these jobs to do while they're there, and it shows them on the road. That's basically the main thing, is showing these insane roads where there's like basically a matter of like this much before the edge, and it kind of can like almost freak you out a little bit because of they go through some of these tunnels that like there's absolutely no space at all. Like, and if they get through it like a mile in, they have to back up the whole way. But I really enjoy this one, and it also has, I think, like about an hour of deleted scenes, so it shows more stuff that I was really glad to see, like with the hotels they were at. And this one guy was at a hotel they said was haunted, and I don't know, I really enjoyed that they showed more, because the show doesn't show too much about where they stay and things like that, and this kind of has a bit more of that, and some more stuff too with them screwing around with fireworks and things like that. This is a really cool show, though. The next one is a Discovery show, and it's Man vs. Wild Season 6. And if you haven't seen this show, it's basically, it's unlike Survival Man, which is basically him, the one guy with the camera, just out there by himself. In this one, he actually has a crew. Sometimes it seems like it might be just one person as a crew, but I think there might be a few more. And this one's way more produced, you know what I mean? And I know it says in the beginning, he gets help along the way, so some things are sort of set up more for the show, but it really is a cool show. This one has some stuff with like him in Arizona, and him out there, like when he, like I think he found like part of a tent and was doing all these things, like making this, out of a tent, I think it was like a tent or something like that that fell from some kind of like a broken down thing. He ended up making this sort of like thing that he could like fly across the desert on with wheels. And I don't know, it's basically kind of gross though, because in this one they really show a lot of like him doing some weird things. Like when he couldn't find any water, he was like digging down in the mud and putting it in his sock and then drinking the water out of the mud and through his sock. And like, I don't know, he's like way more daring. Basically the things that he does in this, he could basically die a number of this stuff, like climbing up these things with absolutely no harnesses. Like, I don't know how he can dare to do this stuff. And he's done this for a long time now. I think the show is over, from what I've heard, though. The next one is Mysteries at the Museum, another show from the Travel Channel, and it's basically a show where it takes certain items in the opening of the show, and it's them kind of going into the history of it. Like the one that I liked, was filmed at the Mutter Museum, talking about shrunken heads, and about how there's like all these fake ones and ones made for the tourist trades. And like the Mutter Museum was in Philadelphia. I actually got to go to that when I was there. I did get kind of freaked out by that place. Like, I don't know, I always get freaked out by like weird like specimens and jars and things like that. But in this one though, it talks about like this car that flew, and how they actually made a car that flew and it actually worked, but then like something happened with it. But it basically takes one certain item and kind of tells the history of it and the story, and it's kind of weird items that you don't really have not heard too much about. This one though really was a cool one. The next one is the same guy from the Histories of the Museum, and it's Off Limits. And this is the same guy who did the show, the underground one, like Histories of the Underworld. I think that's what it's called, something like the Underworld. When they show like underground in certain places, like underground in New York and going through like the subways and things like that. This is kind of the same thing, and it's him going to like areas that are all closed off, and some areas in Los Angeles, like the aqueducts, I think it's called, like the water things. And it's a really cool thing, and he goes to a lot of different areas like Arizona, Seattle, Tennessee, New York, and a bunch of different things, going through these underground areas and places you can never go to, and they're basically all just closed off. And it's like I said, if you like the Cities of the Underworld one, you'd like this one. The next one is called Brewmasters from Discovery Channel, and this is like I think a 5-episode set, so it's not like a season one, it's just like a collection of them. And this is about this company that makes like microbrew. And I remember I think I only ever tried like one microbrew in my life. It was like this hardcore cider thing. I remember it because it was promoting something that my dad did for like a book that he did. I remember like it was a microbrew kind of thing like this. And it's basically this, they go try and find interesting ingredients and things like that to make these microbrews. And I will say too, these DVDs all have these scan things, and like you can scan the back of them and it shows the trailer, which is kind of a cool thing. I know a lot of stuff has that now. But like I said, this is basically them trying to get weird ingredients and things like that. And they get commissioned at the beginning of most of the episodes to, make a certain type of beer. So it's them, showing the process of making it and things like that. Now, the last two I got are from PBS. The first one is Mr. Rogers and Me. It's this documentary about this guy who, he basically lived right, near where, Mr. Rogers would go for vacationing. And they basically had this friendship, and they were meeting up, and, he was exchanging stories and things like that with him. And he puts together a documentary talking to other broadcasters and some friends of Mr. Rogers, and talking about, his life, and, how there really isn't shows like this now, and there's not a lot of shows talking about treating people right, and it's just like very different, and how kids really don't have like a thing like this to teach them. And like, I remember watching this as a kid. Mr. Rogers was a great show. I wish they would put like a whole set like of all the episodes. That'd be pretty cool. The last one I got is America's Test Kitchen. I think I've seen this every so often before. And it's the best part of this though is this guy, he kind of reminds me a little bit of like a Don Knotts mixed with like the voice of Martin Short. And like he remind me of a bunch of different people, but he ends up like the cool thing in this is when they like test certain types of products. It's like, which type of peanut butter did you like? And I think he picked the one that I like. But I know that's a weird thing to say, but they test out like certain types of recipes, like Thanksgiving one, and like showing you certain ways of doing it. It's basically like a, because I watch a lot of Food Network shows. I know the fact I watch Food Network, but a lot of those kind of cooking things and stuff like that. This is kind of like a more serious one, talking about like, well, they tried this and they tried that, which one worked the best and things like that. This was a cool one though, like if you like cooking stuff, and I know there's a lot more volumes of this out. I think this is volume 12, season 12. Anyway though, like I said, the next update is going to probably be like in a week and a half, like right before Comic-Con. I'm probably going to do it because the Comic-Con will be so busy. But anyway though, thanks a lot for watching and for subscribing, and I'll see you guys later.